So we're here at the Design to Part show, a trade show that has suppliers that can take a design that you have to any type of part, whether it's injection molding, whether it is electronic stuff, complicated plastics, cables, wire harnesses, or very, very difficult metal machining, stamping, and other stuff. And I got some specific things that I'm looking for T-Rex Labs and T-Rex Arms related parts and products, but also it's been fascinating just to talk to folks about what's going on in the manufacturing industry. As 2024 comes to a close, we're looking at a new presidential administration, tariffs, everyone's talking about onshoring. I wanted to ask these guys what it is that they're hearing from various people in the industry, but also the folks like me that are coming up and asking about getting parts made. Now, obviously, T-Rex Arms is interested in manufacturing conferences because we manufacture stuff. We make stuff and we find that interesting, so yeah, but there's more to it than that. Manufacturing is a really important part of the security and wealth of a nation. America started off as a farming, agrarian sort of setup, but very soon manufacturing, our ability to build things, our ability to make things, was a very key part of our economy and our identity as a nation. And in recent years, you've probably realized that we've lost some of that. A lot of our manufacturing has gone overseas. We've lost some of our skills and ability in this area, but it's not gone.
I've been involved in manufacturing long enough to have been involved in it since before NAFTA.
Okay,
and of course that made such a huge difference, okay? And in not a good way for U.S. manufacturing.
Yeah.
But that basically boiled down U.S. manufacturing to the higher value added activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's okay. I talk to people who think of U.S. manufacturing as having died, and I got to tell them they're completely wrong, okay? Mm-hmm. But for a U.S. manufacturer, it means that they have to be able to be responsive to customers, have to be able to turn stuff around quickly, and have to be able to focus on doing some things really well.
Yeah.
And for those kind of manufacturers, there are a lot of them that have been doing real well.
Now, there's a couple of areas where American manufacturing has stayed really strong and it's stayed really local. And that is aerospace and medical. And some of that is the really tight tolerances needed for some of those parts, really specific materials and audits to make sure that they don't change and quality control being really high. But some of that is regulatory as well. Government actually maintaining requirements for aerospace parts in the defense industry and the medical stuff. But a lot of it is going to be a speed issue as well. If you are making, for example, a titanium hip replacement for a patient and it's going to need a ceramic coating, you're going to want to make that thing as close to the hospital as possible, not the other side of the world. But even for all the stuff that has moved to China, a lot of it is coming back.
We're a local ceramics manufacturer in central Massachusetts, and we start from powder all the way to the end product.
Yeah.
The last 6 months, it's been, we've seen a real uptick in demand because we have a number of customers that didn't know what it would look like going internationally due to the election.
Yeah.
And now, we're seeing that with Trump in, there's a huge demand to bring things back.
Yeah.
And
trying to manage risk.
It's like a risk
managing risk.
Yeah.
Quality control. You know what you're getting you from start to finish, and it's all made in America.
Is it the tariffs? Is that so where a lot of the uncertainty is, or is it a bunch of factors?
I think that it's more than just the tariffs. Who knows what it'll look like, and they might not be able to get the parts at all.
In recent years, the tariffs have helped a little bit, but I think the whole thing during COVID, when worldwide supply chains were totally disrupted, made people recognize that there's a big risk to that kind of thing, not just a cost savings.
Yeah.
And so I think you've seen a lot of hype about reshoring. I think some of it is going on. Mm-hmm. Some customers are able to bring stuff back on. Some customers realize that if you source locally, you can get it in smaller batches and not have as much capital tied up in the huge supply chain stuff, okay?
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to get as much stranded inventory.
Yeah.
So, from our perspective, from my personal perspective, this is a fine time to be in U.S. manufacturing.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty right now. Last night, South Korea declared martial law, or at least the president did, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in the economic space. But it's not just the uncertainty, there also is this desire for speed. Everybody we talk to mentions some uncertainty with tariffs, some uncertainty with geopolitical stuff, but also a greater desire for faster turnaround times.
Across the board, a lot of your stuff that is still sold in America, they're bringing it all from being manufactured in China to the States.
Yeah. Is the main driver the tariffs? Is the main driver
the tariffs and then the whole China-Taiwan conflict?
How many people can still remember 4 years ago when supply chains got messed up?
We're still struggling with a couple of our lead times. I mean, we used to have POs that were 4 years out.
Yep.
But now we're pretty much back up to running. I think the longest lead time I've seen lately was like maybe 24 weeks for a component. But other than that, I mean, I'm able to do my 6-day turnaround on a good chunk of my customers.
That fast turnaround time is huge. It's part of the reason that we have 3D printers, not just in the same block, but in the same building as our engineers and our product developers. We've already talked about how important 3D printing is for rapid prototyping and stuff like that, so we don't want to go into it too much, but people are applying a lot of these new technologies, and there were a lot of 3D printer companies at the show. So tell me a little bit about, you're a full service company, everything from rapid prototyping with excellent 3D printed demos all the way up to injection molding, fancy coatings. You go to a lot of these shows. How have things changed since you've been doing this? What are you noticing trend-wise?
So it's the general information that customers have of all the processes that are out there now. Yeah. They really told everybody that this was going to revolutionize everything, and to an extent, it really has.
Now, as much as I love old technology, and it all still works perfectly, there's no denying that the new technology brings some significant advantages. One of the coolest things that I think we saw at the show was a laser welding cobot. This is interesting for a bunch of reasons. One of them is I'm a terrible welder, so if I can build things and a robot can weld them for me, we're approaching Iron Man territory.
Up. Not complete. Ready. Got me. Stay put.
And while we're talking about Iron Man, let's remember that one of our goals at T-Rex is the citizen defense industry. If you would like to privatize world peace and defense, you're going to need a lot of manufacturing.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
And even if you are working within the military-industrial complex, the firearms space is generally led by civilian developers, and the military ones follow after. Now, in the past, like early American days, firearms were like a core part of American manufacturing, like a technology driver. Eli Whitney inventing interchangeable parts. Is that still the case with them today, do you think? Because there's so much manufacturing that's out there. Is that still the case with firearms? Like, is it an innovative space?
It certainly is with the customers that we're working with.
Okay. Yeah.
There are certain designs, particularly in the military side, that have been standardized for quite a while, and that provides for interchangeability for the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
But on the commercial side, there's still a lot of innovation, and one of the things we enjoy working with is some of those innovative companies. And they may come out with, 3 or 4 different product releases in a year, where on the military side, it may take decades before there's significant change.
Yes.
So I think in the recent years, it's been more sort of the commercial side. It's been an opportunity for people to innovate and to have the market respond.
Yeah.
And then some of that carries over into the military arsenal.
And it probably helps the overall manufacturing industry in general. Just the emphasis on some new materials, coatings, various things like that. It's a great test bed for a lot of those things, a great driver for some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So making stuff locally gives you a much faster turnaround time on your innovation, your feedback loops of prototyping and testing. But China still has the edge when it comes to individual unit cost. Fortunately, companies are looking beyond just that individual per unit cost, because let's say you have a heat press that you made in-house. That means that you're going to be better at repairing it when stuff goes wrong than something that you just bought off the shelf and are waiting for replacement for. However, there are still some issues with components. There's stuff inside of here that we just can't make locally quite yet.
We still don't have much of our passives made stateside.
Gotcha.
Your resistors, your capacitors.
Right.
That's still all going to be out of Taiwan. And then everybody keeps saying, they're putting in, IC facilities here. A lot of people don't realize those take 7 years to get started up and functional before they actually start pushing out product.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're starting now, so
yeah. So in 7 years.
7 years from now, we can switch over. But we got some chip fab capability that's starting up over here.
Right.
And there are some interesting drivers. I read the other day that Starlink is the #1 printed circuit board manufacturer in the States. They're doing all that over here.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They actually really surprised us whenever they did that.
Yeah. So are you excited about the future?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited for everything to come back stateside.
Speaking of Starlink and SpaceX and other Elon Musk projects, I think people are excited by physical manufacturing and innovation in a way that we haven't been recently. And a lot of it is due to Elon Musk. Just some of the stuff that he is building and doing with rockets and cars. And remember, Tesla is not a car factory. Technically, Tesla is a factory. This is very interesting and motivating to a lot of young people at, I think, probably a really good time. For the last few decades, American innovation has been very software focused. And I don't want to undermine or devalue any of the amazing software innovation that has happened. But you can only go so far with software if you're not also doing hardware. This innovation only goes so far if this innovation isn't happening. Goods and services are another way to think about it. Service industries only go so far if they can't have the goods, the tools, the capabilities to do stuff on the hardware front. So the fact that people are watching spaceship launches, they're seeing Elon Musk do things that nobody has ever done before, they're interested in the physical manufacturing capability of some of these new tools and capabilities, has motivated them, and I think it is a really good thing. But with the 3D printing, how is it that everybody knows what this is? How is it that this is almost a household process at this point?
A lot of the YouTube science channels have got their hands on this material and introduced it to the world.
Yeah.
Smarter Every Day, Backyard Scientists, those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the general information that's out there helps people to understand what they can do with these processes that, I mean, we can't do some of this with traditional manufacturing, and that's where the advantage is going to be with these additive processes. Something that can be machined traditionally, probably going to be machined. For the foreseeable future. But especially with metal printing, we see people like Boeing simplifying complex internal structures on their engines and increasing life cycle of their motors. So
and people learn about that stuff watching YouTube channels.
Right.
Like this. So along with the cultural optimism that is coming from affordable 3D printers and great advances in space exploration technology and the access to all of this information on YouTube at the click of a button, there is also a kind of a depression that is setting in among some people because there's less interest in higher education and academia, which a lot of manufacturing has depended on in the past. But that doesn't actually bother me as much as the fact that our academic institutions are not prepared to really pioneer in this space as well as the regular folks. So the fact that people are skipping that entire institutional side to get hands-on is actually encouraging to me.
We're seeing a lot of kids who are coming out of school and they may not be great book learners, but they enjoy being able to make stuff, being able to feeling the satisfaction of making stuff that's hard to make.
You're talking about my journey, absolutely,
Right. So the vocational schools that we work with have strong interest from their students, and we have strong interest in their students after they've gone through those schools. So we're restarting things like after-school programs and apprenticeship programs, and trying to help people to get a good start in the industry. And it's an industry where you can have a very good career. Our guys are making good dollars.
And they're making important stuff. Manufacturing is important to us here at T-Rex, not just because it is our primary economic activity. You know, making stuff to sell is what we do as a business. But there's a reason we don't outsource this stuff and have it made cheaper somewhere else. The fact that we are designing our stuff in-house and the tools that make it and doing all the problem solving right here in this group of people that make the product, I think is a very big deal. Our ability to do R&D on future projects would suffer if we weren't making this stuff. Even our customer service and ability to take care of you guys would suffer if we had long lead times and huge orders from the other side of the company. And then there is this ideological component where if we care about the citizen defense industry, we want to inspire you guys with more than just individual holster content. Yes, we're not doing Elon Musk levels of innovation in manufacturing. This is not nearly as complicated as rocket engines and landing pads and landing towers, but I think that it does really help people understand how you could, as a small local company, start by making something relatively simple, like a holster, which matters on a whole bunch of different fronts. The equipping serious citizens, yes, but also inspiring and educating people about things that are bigger, like local manufacturing. So now it is the end of the day. Place is emptying out. People are getting ready to pack up their booths, but overall, everybody is very optimistic about stuff. Sometimes it's specific things, but overall, in general, I would say this idea that American manufacturing is in a stronger position moving forwards than the last few years, whether it's because of onshoring, whether it's because of new technologies, whether it's because of young do-it-yourselfers who are getting involved in turning some of their designs into marketable parts that have to be manufactured here. Whatever it is, generally speaking, large levels of optimism. And I think this is particularly interesting. Good for the economy, obviously, but if you're worried about making parts for your own company, or you would like to develop a citizen's defense industry, stronger manufacturing and more capabilities in this space, this is exactly what you're looking for. So it's a very encouraging show. So all these metal manufacturers have all these fantastic parts that they've machined. Every one is like a Where's Waldo game where it's like, which firearm does this come from? It's a fun game.